Then it says decrease in merchandise inventory. Well, on my balance sheet, inventory went from 266 to 245. Well, that's a difference of 21,000. And again, I could calculate that, or right here it is. That's where I calculated it previously, my decrease in inventory. Then it says decrease in prepaid expenses. Right there are my prepaid expenses, 18,000, 13,500. So that decreased by how much? $4,500. And again, right there is my decrease in prepaids. I'd actually calculated that previously. Then it says decrease in accounts payable. All right, accounts payable is down here under the liabilities. It went from 105,200 down to 18,500. That was a difference of 86,700. And again, I had previously calculated that amount. Right here it was, the decrease in accounts receivable, or accounts payable rather. Then it says depreciation expense. Now I've never used that, but I can find that easily. That's on my income statement. If I go down here on my income statement, right there is depreciation expense, 41,000. And then it says loss on sale of equipment. Also on my statement here, I have a loss on sale of equipment. We lost $2,000. Even though it's a negative here, I'm going to put it just as $2,000 on here. So that gives me all the numbers that I need on this top section for indirect method operating activities. But now what I have to do is go back and see which ones of these numbers need to be positive, which ones need to be negative. That's where my formulas are going to come in handy. Look at my formulas. Indirect method, it says net income then. Then I have all these adjustments. It says if I have a decrease in a non-cash current asset, that needs to be added. Well, I had several of those. I had a decrease in accounts receivable, inventory, and prepaids. See, these are non-cash current assets. So I'm going to leave those positive. Now it also says subtract an increase in a non-cash current asset. Well, I didn't have any increases because these were all decreases. But that shows you that when you do a statement of cash flows for homework, it could be a little different. Sometimes they turn out to be positive instead of negative or vice versa. So you always have to watch out for that. You always have to go back and look at your formulas. Then it says add increase in a current liability. Well, we didn't have an increase in a current liability. Our liability actually decreased. So it says if there's a decrease in the current liability, that is to be subtracted. So that 86,700, I want to make that negative. Then it says add expenses with no cash outflow. Well, we definitely had one of those. Depreciation expense. See, think about it. We don't pay the depreciation expense to anybody. It's just an expense on paper. So that's an expense with no cash outflow. That is to be positive, so we'll leave it as positive. Then it says subtract revenue with no cash inflow. We didn't have any of that. Then it says gains and losses. We do the opposite. If there are any losses, we add. If there are gains, we subtract. You have to do the opposite because remember, gains and losses are not really money. It's just gains and losses on paper. So if it's a loss, add it. If it's a gain, subtract it. Well, we actually had a loss, so we'll just leave it positive. Now, I know that there's a lot of potential on this indirect method to be a little confused on this part as far as which of these numbers need to be positive and which ones need to be negative. But if you just look at your formulas very carefully, that will help you decide which ones to make positive, which ones to make negative. Now, how will we know if we're correct? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take that 914,000 and we're going to net all this together. because we have all these different adjustments that we're making to that. And the number that I end up with there is 908,000. Well, that number should sound familiar. Look up here at my operating activities on direct method, 908,000. See, I get the same answer either way. It's just a different way of getting there, and it's a different way of presenting it. But ultimately, I am going to get the same answer. So you always expect that answer to match up. So that completes my statement of cash flows indirect method. Now, like I said, the key to doing this, it's not particularly difficult as far as the math. The main thing is just look at your formulas, be very meticulous about it, consider all the possibilities on those formulas, and know where to look to find your information, and ultimately double check. You have a built-in way. It's one of the nice things about the statement of cash flows. You do have that built-in way to check to make sure that it is correct.